This is the lecture on the tobacco industry, part 2. So let's continue on talking about some of the unethical tactics used by Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company. Some of the documents were likely destroyed, legal documents. Again, unethical, illegal. Not only have tobacco companies coordinated on a global level, they are also linked with many other corporate interests. Financial ties between tobacco companies and the chemical, pharmaceutical, and food industries gave the tobacco companies leverage to influence policies that could affect these other industries. So you see here, and this is something we really haven't talked about this semester, that you'll see corporations that sort of work together to protect each other. You help us out, we'll help you out. We sort of increase our power by creating these alliances and maybe lobbying Washington, D.C. to protect against laws that would hurt us, against regulations that would hurt us. So you see, this is a common tactic that you see among big companies in various industries, is that they'll create associations or various sort of, organizations made up of multiple companies that will pool their resources and often engage in lobbying activities to, influence politicians to help protect these companies against lawsuits and against financial loss, right? For example, the tobacco company has used its financial ties with the pharmaceutical companies to pressure the pharmaceutical companies to weaken their marketing of nicotine replacement therapies. So you see here some again, it's going against the health of individuals, where you're going to be healthier if you can kick your habit of smoking cigarettes, and if you could use a nicotine replacement therapy of some sort to help you kick the habit. Well, that's good for you. That's good for your health. But you see these tobacco industries wanting you to keep smoking cigarettes and pressuring pharmaceutical companies to not sell so much of these nicotine replacement therapies because that hurts their business. So again, no concern here about public health, concern about making money. According to the tobacco industry's internal documents, nicotine is a drug and cigarettes are a drug delivery device. And the internal documents, the documents of these companies on the inside understood that what they were making was a drug delivery device. The cigarette is a way to get nicotine into your body, and that nicotine is a drug. It's addictive, and it affects you physiologically, your system, your body. They understood that. They understood that long ago. But they knew that themselves, but they wouldn't tell the public that. They lied to the public and said, oh, this is not a drug, it's not addictive, it's not bad for you, etc., etc. So, clearly lying, clearly deceptive. Tobacco companies consider themselves to be comparable to drug companies. The tobacco industry hoped to identify beneficial health effects of nicotine. Early research investigated the effects of nicotine on the stress response and weight reduction. See, so they try to find positives. So if you could find that cigarettes were healthy in some fashion, then you could at least argue that the health benefits offset, neutralize any negative consequences of smoking. So it is true, for example, that people who smoke there is a tendency to be thinner, to lose weight if you smoke, and also that nicotine, gives people who are addicted to it, gives them a sort of a pleasurable experience that can sort of be, a way. It's not a good way, not a healthy way, but a way to deal with stress, with difficulties, that kind of thing. So they tried to prove and emphasize the positive effects of smoking on the individual. Research on nicotine delivery led to the design of filter additives that would increase the amount of free nicotine, the kind that is more easily absorbed in the mouth. So again, you could see here that an important purpose of these filters or additives put into filters was to be able to claim that, well, these cigarettes are healthier, or they're not as bad because they have filters on them, and we're filtering out the tars, the toxins of certain kinds, but allowing the nicotine to come in. And the nicotine is a drug, but it's they would argue, trying to argue that it's not like a bad thing. It affects your system, but it's something like caffeine that affects your system but doesn't really hurt you, they would argue. But if the effect here is to get greater amounts of free nicotine into your system, and that's easily absorbed into your mouth, that contributes to the addictiveness of the cigarette because it's a more powerful buzz and has more addictive properties on the smoker. The research projects were conducted secretly because the tobacco industry had not yet admitted that its products were addictive or harmful to health. So that's another thing that organizations, corporations do that's unethical, is they do their activities in the dark, secretly, because they want to hide any negative evidence, harmful evidence that could hurt the financial interests of the company. Now, the tobacco industry documents tell us that nicotine is addictive, and they knew it. The tobacco industry concealed this information from the public, so they knew it was addictive. Their own internal research showed it. It's sort of common sense too, but the research showed it. But they concealed this information from the public. As a matter of fact, they lied and denied that it was addictive in public, again, to protect themselves. However, the industry did attempt to manipulate the amount of nicotine in cigarettes as part of their strategy to design a less harmful cigarette. So it is true that, again, with the desire to protect themselves, that they tried to design cigarettes with things like filters. We mentioned that a moment ago. With tobacco with less nicotine in it, tried to do things that they could sell the cigarette as being less harmful, more benign, because of these different design strategies that they had changed the cigarette from the way it was previously, with no filters and stronger tobacco and all that kind of thing. The aim of the nicotine research conducted by the tobacco industry was to understand more about cigarettes and how to modify them. See, so they conducted the research not to really so much to protect the customer, but to learn the properties of nicotine, learn the properties of the tobacco, and how those properties could be altered, manipulated to increase sales, right? To increase profits. If we can make it more pleasurable to the user, to the smoker, more addictive, so they need it more, that benefits us. We'll sell more cigarettes. Research was also conducted on the adverse health effects of tobacco in order to promote controversy about the data on the association of smoking and disease. So, again, if you can kind of muddy the waters, if you can produce research that is not really clear, or that promotes sort of controversy, where, well, we found you folks found that, but we found this. So who really knows the adverse health effects of tobacco? So again, that's one thing that research can do. It's not supposed to. An unethical thing is to reinforce the idea that it's unclear what the findings are. It's unclear, and so we should allow the companies to keep doing what they're doing, because we don't have clear evidence that there are serious problems here. Some of the significant findings from the document analysis are not what the tobacco industry knew about the health effects of tobacco, but when they knew it. And indeed, they knew a lot of this stuff early on, a long time before it ever came to light in public. For example, although tobacco industry executives knew in 1963, that's a long time ago, that nicotine was addictive, they denied it during congressional hearings in 1994 that nicotine was addictive. So here we're talking about more than 30 years after they first knew about this and found out about this. They're still lying about it, still denying its addictive properties. The documents would also, and here's a tactic you also see with elite deviants, using what are called euphemisms, such as biological activity, quote unquote, for cancer, and other diseases. Instead of calling it cancer, which is what it is, or some other disease like emphysema or something like that, they call it biological activity. I mean, what does that even mean? So a euphemism, of course, is a word, a substitute word that softens what you're talking about, so it doesn't sound so horrible. So cancer sounds scary, so you say biological activity so that people, so as to soften what you're talking about to the point where people don't even really know what you're talking about. So it's a trick, a tactic, a verbal tactic to deceive people. Product liability lawsuits were more likely to occur in the United States than in other countries. So we had stronger laws here than in other countries. The documents describe how representatives of tobacco companies based outside of the United States accepted that smoking caused a variety of diseases, whereas companies based in the United States did not. Therefore, the United States tobacco companies pushed the other companies to conspire at an international level to hide their research results. So again, you kind of see it all comes down to this profit motive, right? If you live in a country where you're going to get sued a lot, where the laws are stronger against selling an unhealthy product like tobacco, in that situation, you're going to lie more and deceive more. In some other country where the lawsuits are not such an issue, you could be more open and honest about the facts, about your research. And so you can, but if it's one huge mega corporation, multinational corporation, then the United States, headquarters, we see pushed, coerced these companies in other countries to go along with the deception and the dishonesty in the United States, so that you had a united front, that you all had the same message. It's not addictive, it's not bad for your health, et cetera, et cetera. And so the pressure came from the United States for other companies in other countries as well to be dishonest and to go along with the deception. Research that was directly related to tobacco products could be used to refute scientific findings suggesting that the product is harmful to health, and to keep alive controversy about adverse effects. So again, you could have competing. That's one reason to have your own scientists and use your own research, is to have competing research that's directly dealing with the issue here, tobacco. This is what we do. We're experts. We sell tobacco, so nobody knows it better than we do. We know it better than the scientists outside of our organization. So you can compete with independent scientists, and plus these people have a lot of money to support research, to back up research, but research that's not independent, research that's done by their own people, and that therefore you can bias that research, you can twist that research for your own benefit. So again, it's back to the muddying the waters that I was talking about before. If the research generally clearly shows that tobacco is addictive and dangerous, well, you muddy the waters by putting out a few studies that question that, and then you can argue who really knows. The results are mixed, so we can't have any confidence one way or the other. The research could also be used to prepare the tobacco industry for litigation or legislative challenges. The industry was also funding research that was not directly related to its product in order to distract attention from tobacco as a health problem, to generate good publicity, and to enhance its credibility. So you can see here, this is not the purpose of research. Research is supposed to find the truth. It's supposed to, if it's medical, biomedical health research, it's supposed to find out, are things harmful? Are things unhealthy? Or on the flip side, are they healthful? Are they good for you? Are they safe? That's the purpose of medical health research. But here you see that the whole purpose of the research is to protect, to promote the interests of the company. And that's not what research is supposed to be about. That's an unethical use of scientific activities, of research. It's sort of a distortion of what research is supposed to be about. Law firms that represented tobacco companies also funded research on tobacco. Let's see. I'm 15 minutes in. Let's stop here, and then I'll pick it up at this point in the next segment.